안녕하세요. 춘눈 Connie입니다. That's all the Korean I know. Good afternoon. I'm from Taiwan Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. First, I would like to thank Kara for inviting me to the conference. And today, I will share with everyone about Taiwan's experience with the ban on dog meat. Okay, so first, a little about what we do at the SPCA. Okay. So myself, along with two other co-founders, started the organization in 2009. We currently have 9 full-time staff dedicated to 5 different departments. So 9 people is not a lot, but we have 5 different departments such as animal cruelty investigations, animal welfare education, campaigning and lobbying, research, and animal rehoming. So some of our accomplishments, we're really well known in Taiwan as the go-to NGO for investigating cases of animal cruelty. In 2015, we received over 700 reports from the public, and this is just with 3 full-time inspectors. So we also work with the government on many cases because only the government have the legal authority to confiscate animals or to issue fines. And in 2015, we successfully shut down the largest illegal puppy mill in Taiwan's history and rescued and rehomed over 300 dogs from the facility. And recently, actually, 2 months ago, we busted another illegal puppy mill. This time, there were over 60 dogs, Shiba Inus. We're also the first NGO in Taiwan to establish what we call pet adoption corners in pet stores in order to rehome homeless animals. So the Taiwan SPCA has also successfully lobbied for the passing of a bill that amended the Animal Protection Act to include stricter regulations on the improper rearing of animals, so pets, and regulations on the industry involving exhibition and performance animals. In addition, we have successfully lobbied for the introduction of a bill to end cosmetics animal testing in Taiwan as part of the Be Cruelty Free campaign, which is in partnership with Humane Society International. And I'm happy to announce that our bill now has passed the Social Welfare and Environmental Hygiene Committee and is awaiting for a vote in Parliament in September. Okay, so now to the main topic, the history and legislation regarding dog meat in Taiwan. Okay, so back in history, there was dog meat in Taiwan. In 1949, when the Kuomintang party seceded from China and fled to Taiwan after the Chinese Civil War, the KMT brought to Taiwan the custom of eating dog meat. And in the past, due to a weaker economy, dog meat was seen as a cheap protein source. Dog meat was also promoted as something you would eat during the winter months to benefit your health. So it was seen as something cheap, but also nutritious. However, dog meat never really became a main food staple in Taiwan, as dogs were never considered a type of economical or farm type of animal. Therefore, the system for dog farming, slaughtering dogs, and production were never established on a large scale. A news article that we found in 1959 also quoted the then health minister telling the public not to eat dog meat, as most dog meat sources came from street animals, which means people could be eating diseased animals or rotting roadkill. So we know that yes, people did eat dogs, but the government did not promote the industry. Okay. So back about 30, 40 years ago in Taiwan, during when dog meat was more popular, though it wasn't as popular as other types of meat, people would raise their own dogs for maybe 1 to 2 years and then kill them to be eaten. Or they would go and catch stray dogs and kill and eat the dogs themselves. But if you think about it, to catch a dog and then to kill a dog, it was very tedious work. Therefore, restaurants started popping up to cater to these customers. So now that you have restaurants, and then meat providers started popping up. And these vendors would sell dogs to these restaurants. And the providers would drive around the streets looking for stray dogs, or people who needed the money would sell their dogs to these providers. And during that time, there came about a saying, translated, it means 1 black, 2 yellow, 3 patterns, 4 white, which means 一黑二黄三花四白. So it meant that people believe, okay, black dogs tasted the best, and then came yellow dogs, and then dogs who had mixed patterns on their fur, and then finally white dogs. Okay, so then, but then came the law. First of all, just to put things into perspective, Taiwan's first democratic legislative elections were held in 1991, and first democratic presidential election was in 1996. And our Animal Protection Act was only enacted in 1998. In the very beginning, the original Animal Protection Act in 1998 was an article that banned the slaughtering of all animals in public spaces. So, which meant you couldn't kill an animal out in plain view or on the streets. And at the time, there was also an article that said you couldn't kill animals at all unless for these 8 exceptions, one of which was if it was for an economical reason, such as for food, for fur, or if you wanted to kill the animal to feed to another animal. There was also an article that would give authorities the right to announce that certain animals would be banned for economical purposes. And if we look back at the legislative reason behind this article, the explanation is as follows. And this is a direct translation. In order to protect the environment and to protect our country's image within the international community, central authorities have the right to declare which type of animals are not to be killed for economical purposes. For example, dogs and cats have a special bond with humans, and our citizens are slowly accepting that dogs and cats should not be eaten. So the legislative reason back then was already hinting that the killing of dogs and cats could and should be banned in the future. Okay, so moving on to 2001. In 2001, legislation was passed to ban the slaughtering of pets for economical purposes, such as for food or for fur. Now, 3 reasons led to this new legislation. Number 1, there were continued protests from animal groups, particularly when word got out in the 80s and 90s that government sanitation workers were catching and selling stray dogs and then selling them to these dog meat vendors. Back in the day, the government sanitation workers were responsible for not just cleaning up the streets, but also for catching stray dogs. And they would do so by catching them and disposing them pretty much like every other garbage. And they would use methods such as drowning, like electric shock, or even burying dogs alive, which was also raising a lot of internal and international criticism. The second reason, more and more Taiwanese started having dogs as pets, and under the influence of Western culture, many started to agree that pets should not be eaten, and dogs were part of our family. Now, the third reason was also that the rise of the economy. Legislators proposed that stray dogs should not be a food source anymore, as there were already many types of other animal meats available. Okay. However, a question was raised at the time. In 2001, the question was, wouldn't a ban on killing one type of animal for food overly restrict the freedom of the people? And this was questioned by some legislators. Their argument was also that if you ban the killing of dogs and cats for food, then why not ban the killing of other animals for food? So the legislators that proposed the bill responded by saying that Taiwanese culture and values sees dogs and cats as our friends, our companions, our family members, and Taiwan does not have the cultural tradition of eating dogs and cats. Therefore, the ban would not be something that's not already accepted by the majority of the people. Legislators further pointed out that since the Animal Protection Act forbids the killing of animals unless for certain regulated purposes, and also separated the definition of pets, which was by definition animals providing companionship, from farm animals, which were animals used for economical purposes, such as for food and fur. Therefore, pets should not be slaughtered because they are meant for companionship and had no economical purpose. So the bill was still successfully passed in 2001, but important to note, the act of eating dogs and cats was not technically banned yet. Legislators back then focused on the act of killing and selling instead of the act of eating, in order to not draw any unnecessary attention on how it may seem that they were trying to restrict what people ate. So the new legislation in 2001 originally only had a fine of between 2,000 to 10,000 Taiwanese dollars, but the fine was then increased to between 50,000 and $250,000 Taiwanese dollars in 2003. Now this was for the slaughtering of pets. And animal groups recall that before there were any legislation to forbid the practice of slaughtering dogs, animal groups would go in front of these restaurants and protest and start leafleting, trying to educate the restaurant owners. But they said it didn't have much of an effect. So it was legislation that helped to end the dog meat trade. And then in December of 2007, the Animal Protection Act was amended again, this time to clearly state that the killing of dogs or cats is forbidden, and so is the act of selling their carcasses. Now in 2001, the law only mentioned pets, so the wording is actually very important. But now the word dog and the word cat were clearly written into the new legislation, replacing the word pets. In addition, because the act of killing a dog or cat is often very hard to catch, so you would need video evidence showing that this person actually slaughtered the animal. So sometimes the evidence is very hard to get. So the new legislation separated the slaughtering part and the act of selling. And the fine for slaughtering was set between 100,000 to 500,000 Taiwanese dollars. And the name or picture of the offendant will be publicly announced. The fine for selling the carcasses was between 50,000 to 250,000 Taiwanese dollars. And the name or picture of the offendant would be publicly announced. Okay. So now that it was illegal to kill dogs and cats, dog meat stores were forced out of business. But many then went underground, often hiding behind the name of lamb or goat meat restaurants or hot pot restaurants, usually only selling to customers they know and within the local community. Now, animal groups and activists would then spend months going undercover and gaining the trust of these illegal vendors in order to collect evidence and then reporting them to the authorities. In recent times, reports of these incidents still occur from time to time, and it is suggested that illegal dog meat stores do still exist today, but many times, mostly in the southern parts of Taiwan and in more rural areas. And now because of the fake goat meat restaurants. It led to a very popular Chinese idiom that basically means, it means 挂羊头卖狗肉, which means trickery or deceit. So it translates to basically displaying a goat's head but selling dog meat. Also in recent years, the number of migrant workers has increased in Taiwan. Workers from countries such as Vietnam and the Philippines still have a custom of eating cats and dogs. Therefore, many times in the news, we'll hear reports of foreign workers killing and or eating dogs and cats for food, and even posting the pictures or videos on social media such as Facebook, which conjured more public outcries and protests. So then animal groups came out and said that our current legislation was not enough to halt the eating of dogs and cats. Okay, so protests by animal protection groups continued throughout the years as individual incidents or of the illegal slaughtering of dogs and cats for food continued to appear. So in 2015, the Animal Protection Act was amended again. The act of slaughtering dogs and cats became a criminal offense, and the penalty was increased to imprisonment of no more than 1 year with a fine between $100,000 to $1 million Taiwanese dollars. And in 2015, the city of Kaohsiung passed a local ordinance that banned the act of eating, buying, and keeping dog or cat meat. Now, this was the first time that eating a dog or cat became illegal, albeit only in the city of Kaohsiung. And this was due to the fact that in 2015, just in the city of Kaohsiung, there were at least 4 incidents of the illegal slaughter and selling of dogs and cats for meat just in the city, including a family that were stealing pet dogs and slaughtering them for food, and 2 restaurants that were selling dog meat, as well as a group of foreign workers from Vietnam who caught stray cats with gin traps and then barbecued them and ate them. The ordinance also held employers of foreign workers legally responsible if their employees killed and or ate dog meat. And finally, in 2016, legislators proposed a new bill that will ban the act of eating dogs and cats nationwide. And violators will face a fine between $50,000 and $250,000. And the bill has now passed the Economics Committee back in July, so last month, and is now awaiting a parliamentary vote. Thank you.
대만은 먼저 개도사를 금지하고 그다음에 개 사체 판매를 금지하고 이제는 보관하는 것도 금지하고 이제 먹는 것까지 처벌하겠다고 지금 하고 있는데 2001년부터 15년이 걸렸는데 우리나라는 정말 어떻게 하면 좋을까요?